for joining us. And this is Western Dressage levels 2 through 5, Movements Explained. And we've been through this series, and this is the culmination of this particular series for Wadami. Thank you, Mary Linton, for being our host and organizing everything. And also, I know Carol isn't with us, but we're sending her our best thoughts and prayers for fast healing and good improved health. And she was in charge of all of our emails and gathering our list and keeping track of people. Thank you so much. And inspired President Sue Morrissey, who said, "Go ahead, I think it's a great idea." And Dana Roberts is always pitching in at the last moment, helping me with everything when my hair starts to stand up straight. She pats it all down and helps me out with all these cool little things that go wrong. And she's been in charge of all these thumbnails and things that have been so attractive. Thank you again, Dana, for helping. She's a wonderful assistant. There we go. Of course, is the review to start, and behind me is the training wheel. And here's sort of a small portion, I kind of condensed it. But what we're getting at here is that as we ride and we move up the levels, the training wheel is very important. And we have to keep referring to it, and we have to train with it and judge with it. So as you go up the level, it isn't just about, oh my goodness, it's level 2, and so now I have to learn shoulder in. Yes, you have to learn shoulder in and half pass and all of those other really exciting, fun movements, but you have to maintain the rhythm of the horse, which means do not ruin the gait, do no harm. The lope 3 beat, the walk 4 beat, the jog 2 beat, and they have to be clean. We're looking to maintain suppleness and relaxation. We have to keep connection, which is that they have to be on the bit, round. They have to accept the aids. And as they progress from level 1 into level 2 and through level 5, there are increasing amounts of self-carriage, which means that not only is the horse truly on the bit, but they are uphill. And in Western dressage, we expect them, and the problem with the on the bit words is that that has something to do with the outline of their frame. But we do not expect them to be leaning on the bridles. Self-carriage is that they will be light in the bridles and elastic and working with us. Collected gaits are not slow. And impulsion, willingness to go forward, and correct tempo are very, very important and are the next part of the training wheel. And without impulsion, and this is to go freely forward with gaits that come close to tracking up, if not tracking up completely, because all conformations of horses, unless they are unsound, can pretty much tack up. And if they don't, you're talking them missing tracking up by an inch or 2. Horses that do not track up at the jog by 7 to 10 inches, something is very, very wrong. And people, we have to keep educating that the horses may not be comfortable, and we need to keep looking at this because impulsion is not slow, it is powerful. When horses swing their backs, they come very close to tracking up, or track up, or they overtrack like they should in lengthening gaits. So we have to have a lot of power, which is like engine RPMs, because when you begin to work in compression, which is collection and engagement, and you ask them to bend, without the power to go forward, if you ask them to bend, it will be a braking motion. They will slow down. So impulsion is a component that is required. Next, of course, is straightness and bend, which are the suppling exercises, which ask the horse to be supple through its top line, where the collection is eventually going to happen. Engagement is the closing of the hind legs, SI, and all the joints where the horse takes weight onto the hind end, lifts the thoracic, And that springing motion of the hind legs either propels the horse forward, it propels it forward, or it propels it up, meaning that the horse will have ease of movement. And if all of these things happen, collection comes together when the rider, who is the circle, the rider trainer is the circle, if they can be in balance and are a well-educated, balanced horse rider and has the talent and the half halts and the aids to begin to ask for the engagement and the compression, collection occurs. So collection is not the idea of some other divisions of I'm either setting his head or slowing him down. Neither of those are what we call collection in Western dressage. In short, the horse needs to be in connection, i.e. on the bit, uphill with impulsion, engagement, and it has to show collection and self-carriage in levels 2 through 5. Now, between level 2 and 5, does that improve and become more uphill and show more? Yes, it does. And clearly in level 2, as horses move out of level 1, in level 1, we talked about our very first call of this series, talked about level 1, that the horses in working gaits would have a lot of impulsion and they would be active and the backs would be swinging because it is that power that we need to harness as they begin to do these more complicated movements, which require bend and self-balancing skill. We're asking these horses to self-balance themselves and move forward in active gaits while they are bent, like, for example, half pass. The tricky part about level 2 through 5, which we keep reiterating and which is the most important part of thinking about this part of our set of levels, is that you must maintain all of this above. And then the horse has to demonstrate the requirements of the specific movement that they're asked to do. So if the children ask for 3 tracks, they still have to stay on the bit with impulsion, engagement, showing some collection at level 2, a little more at 3, more at 4, more at 5, self-carriage, be light in the bridle. They have to do all those things and meet the requirement of that particular movement. In connection or on the bit is continuously required in level 2 through 5. And additionally, collected gaits are powerful and they are active and they're required. Horses must show a notable change in impulsion, balance, and engagement from working gaits. Now, to reiterate, we're in working gaits in intro, basic, and first level. And in first level, by the time the horses are in level 1, test 4, we're expecting those horses to be quite active, swinging in the back, and as close to possible physically to tracking up as possible, because as we progress in the training with the training wheel, asking them to start into lateral work, if they don't have that much impulsion to begin, we know from our training system that they will have difficulty with the upcoming lateral movements and progressing into collection with uphill frame. Thank you to all the kind people who very kindly sent pictures. And this horse is such a cool horse. Thank you so much for the kindness of this. This horse is a lovely intro horse, balanced in a nice intro, very beginning frame. And this gentleman was showing this horse in intro when they took this picture in intro test 1. Now, this is a horizontal frame, and actually this horse does have sufficient impulsion for intro level. But you have to begin to train your eye that if this horse was presented in level 1 or level 2, we would say he was strung out, that he doesn't close in the jaw or poll, and he's in a horizontal balance. This is a lovely intro balance in a working jog, but as you progress to the end of first level, this horse should be transitioning, and even in basic, he would come together more, give more to the pole, he would begin to reach more towards the bridle, lift his back, and we would begin to see this horse even begin to use the thoracic a little more. At the moment when this picture was taken, this horse was an intro. It's a lovely picture for that. Now on the right is level 4, level 5, and we need to see the difference that here's a horse clearly on the bridle, in the bit, in self-collection. We have a tremendous amount of power going on here. All the muscles are soft, this horse's ears are soft, the eyes are soft, the mouth is closed. We have a balanced, quiet rider. And this is what uphill and powerful collected gaits look like between level 2 and level 5. Why are these two pictures together? Because we are actually having some horses exhibited in level 2 in this frame, in this balance, in working gaits. And we are trying to educate people that this is an intro frame, balance, and energy level. Next, we're going to go over the movements that are actually in level 2 through 5. And here's a picture of a horse on turn on the forehand, which is great. He's crossing his hind legs. He's moving away from this rider's left leg. And you can see that his pole is above the withers, but you can also see that he's on the bit or round or in connection. They must maintain the same rhythm and contact and activity. The horse's hind legs make a circle around the front end. On the turn on the forehand to the right, the horse has lateral pole flexion to the right, and that's all the bend that a horse will show in this kind of a movement is just, you can just see the horse's eye, just a little bit, just lateral pole flexion. And then, let's see if we can get you guys out of the way. Sorry, I was moving you around and I pulled you a little too far. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way, I guess. Let's see if we can back up. There we go. And then the right hind foot crosses the left hind foot. The horse should keep forward intent and the ability to cease turning at any moment, and the willingness to be on the outside rein is very important and should be demonstrated. Stepping back is a fault. So keeping the horse altogether organized with the rider centered and the horse in balance in these exercises becomes very important to us. Here is the pivot, and what is required in the pivot is very slight lateral pole flexion. That's it for bend. That the horse makes an effort to establish itself on the inside hind leg as the pivot foot. That it thinks forward and maintains forward intent, i.e., it doesn't look like it's sucking back, it doesn't step back, it doesn't drop its pole, it doesn't drop its withers. The outside foreleg crosses in front of the inside foreleg. And here's Tamara's horse doing this. And the best part about this is how centered she is and how even she is. He's a great crosser. He lost his balance just a little bit. This is his pivot foot and his step back just a little bit. This pivot still received a 7.5 because of its activity. He was very steady. You have the feeling as they turn that the rider has control of the pivot and could stop at any moment. And that is very important, that you have the feeling that the rider could reverse on demand at any moment. Really doing a great job with her core. She's looking in the direction she's going with her eyes level, hands quiet, and the horse, obviously the poll is above the withers and face on the vertical. He's soft to the bridle. We are looking for this. Not only does he have to meet the requirements of what his feet do, but he still has to be round to the connection. Easier said than done. Shoulder in. While remaining engaged and on the bit and in connection, we're in 3 tracks, uphill, in balance with, and this is a quote, this is right from the rule book, soft uniform bend, including slight lateral pole flexion, approximately 30 to 32 degrees. So looking at this horse, here's our 3 tracks, left 4, and here's right 4 and left hind together, and right hind. This line shows you that you have lateral pole flexion. The rider is centered. If we had drawn across here, not too bad on the centering, and the rider is centered on the horse, not leaning. Or how about this? If we drew a line across here, shoulders level, that's good. Those kind of things are very good. Horse's mouth is closed, ears level, lateral pole flexion. And it's the same thing, while remaining active, taking good big steps, taking the same jog steps, the quality of the jog steps, the same as when she came off the rail, and this horse progresses in this active jog and keeps moving in the same active jog. Now, Joanne Williams, I know you're there. Talk to me a little bit, or talk to these folks a little bit about how important it is for the horses to be active enough with the tracking, so that we're not, super short tracking.
Oh, let me see where to start. In an ideal world, as you're saying, the inside hind leg really needs to reach into the print left by the outside front. And without sufficient power, that cannot happen. And then the development of the horse cannot happen. We use these movements not as tricks, not as things that we teach the horse, but things that improve the horse's strength, suppleness, flexibility, and obedience. So without getting the motor running, you defeat the purpose of the exercise.
Very good. I didn't put it like that myself, but that is the very best way to say it, that the impulsion needed to do a good shoulder in makes it possible to do the correct shoulder in, and that the shoulder in is a development exercise to supple and balance the horse, to make it more even on both sides, and to begin the starting point of the suppling and the collecting that's possible. And so you're right, that stepping under is very important.
Now, when I ride shoulder in, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
When I ride shoulder in, and all the lateral work, in my head, I'm thinking hind legs, hind legs, hind legs, hind legs, keep the power.
Yes, exactly. So we just looked at shoulder in, but I took another set of photographs on this particular day so that we would have a set of photographs, same horse on the center line, first in shoulder in and then renvers, because renvers irrelevant. That sounds bad, but let me finish it, because that taken out of context could really be butchered. That sound really bad. But if you finish the sentence and I don't make a hesitation, it's until you show shoulder in everywhere that we do renvers. First, you're in shoulder in, and then you go to renvers. Renvers is about, can you change the angle, and can you change the bend, and change how the horse engages while it's still moving forward? That's what it's about. And so without the shoulder in as a comparison, if you just look at renvers, it looks like haunches in. And if you didn't know that I was doing shoulder in before I did this, you would just assume that I was doing haunches in but I fell off the wall, or I fell off the rail, or I fell off the line I was in. And this is why in freestyle that we don't encourage people to do renvers, because the judge doesn't know if they don't do a shoulder in first, and if you don't nail it, if you don't get at least a 7 on your shoulder in, and then you start doing renvers, I don't know if you're doing renvers or you're doing some kind of haunches in thing. And even if it's right in front of me, I'm not sure. So we always say to people, don't bother in freestyle to do renvers, because the judge can't really recognize it and they don't know what you intended to do. So without the intent of the shoulder in, they're not clear what you're doing. So here's the comparison for us so that we're real clear about the difference in the bend. Shoulder in is 3 tracks and it's uphill. Most of the bend in shoulder in reality, there's almost, I mean, virtually no neck bend, almost none. But lateral pole flexion is absolutely necessary. And flexion, it's the shoulder flexion that is rather significant in shoulder in. Riders can really feel it. And the 3 tracks is important, the lateral pole flexion. If you have neck bend in shoulder in, you'll be in 6 and down. And some of them are 4 and down because it's not about neck bend in shoulder in. So the interesting thing about this is to get to renvers is you move this front end wide. And this is the picture. I moved her wide. And then I have to change the bend. And the bend changing starts with her pole, then her neck, then her shoulders, then her barrel. And meanwhile, your job is in renvers is that you kept the hind legs absolutely on the line that you were on. You move the shoulders away from the line, then you change the bend from the front to the back, and here you are in 4 tracks. The hind legs remain on the established or required track. The shoulders move, and this is according to the rule book. They refer to it as in because because you go shoulder in renvers, and here's the shoulders in, so you go wider, so the shoulders went wider in. And then you must exhibit increased flexion and bend with attention to the lateral pole flexion. And it's a minimum of 35 degrees. And this is a 40 to a 42 degree right here. For a really good one, they're wide, quite wide. But without bend, if this didn't have bend, it would be legial. Now, Sue Morrissey, are you out there? I wanted to call on you. Are you there, my friend? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I can unmute myself.
Okay, talk to us a little bit because you're judging and you're going to judge the international. How cool is this? And how often do you see a good change from a shoulder into a renvers?
Not very often.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for them? What's the problem?
It's the bend. It's the changing of the bend.
Getting the bend, yes. And most of
in the track, yeah.
Yeah, start with they don't produce a good shoulder in to start with, do they?
Yeah, no, they don't do the shoulder in. Yeah, so you can't get, if you don't have a good shoulder in, there's no way.
Yes.
You can't.
Yes. And the other little cheat thing they do is start with the shoulder in too wide, 4 tracks anyway, and then go for the renvers, which I always nail them for that because I'm really looking for a really good standard shoulder in. This is the developmental exercise for us. And if they cheat on that, then I'm never convinced about this.
Right. And then, they all seem to like to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, lose energy.
They lose energy, yeah. That's a way of backing too hard, so horses back off.
Yes, while they're trying to manipulate the bend to the new bend, they either forget to keep pushing or the way that they begin to change the bend that accidentally slows the horse and they can't keep up the impulsion.
That's right. Got to ride those hind legs. Like Joanne says.
Yes, absolutely.
Keep them active.
we keep reiterating that at level 2 through 5, the horses have to be round to the connection. And here's my cool favorite little horse. But we have to be real clear about this, that a horse in level 2 should not be in this frame. And we are having people exhibit horses in level 2 in this frame. The problem with that is first of all, this is not on the bit or even round enough or engaged enough for even level 1. This is an intro or maybe even a basic 1 frame. But even by the time that you're at the end of basic and the first level 1, this isn't round enough, it isn't engaged enough, and this horse's balance will change. And I love this little horse and he's beautiful. So that's why I keep picking. One of the reasons is there's lots of basic horses that aren't doing a good job at basic. This horse is doing a good job at basic. So I'm picking on him, but I want to say in his defense, this horse shown like that is perfectly fine, doing a lovely job at basic. And that's what a basic horse looks like. But when this balance of horse is presented in level 2, it isn't a 5. It is not a 5. And a horse that is struggling in this balance will have difficulty getting the 3 tracks for the shoulder in. Obviously, it's not uphill. It probably can't half pass, whatever they're asking it to do. It's not in the balance that we're looking for. And you can't be in level 2 in this frame and positioning, even if you're in working trot and your horse is in this frame and you go in 3 tracks, well, Joanne is still there and Sue is still there. So if a horse came in this frame and this balance and they did a 3-track shoulder in with some bend, where are you, Joanne? Like, it's the problem of they don't meet the requirement of the level for the collection. They're not in a collected gait. They're not uphill, right? Are we all agreed on that?
I have to be at 4.
Yes.
If I'm feeling really generous and they're really forward and steady in the connection, I might go 4 or 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where we're at. Now, these 2 horses at the bottom are clearly above the bit, and these are more experienced horses. These horses were being presented in level 2 and level 5. This horse was pivoting. So you don't see, you see her, she's standing on her pivot, but above the bit, some tilt, and tilt through here and open here. And this horse is in what should be a collected jog, but is inactive enough that the diagonals are not super clear, but the horse is not round to the bridle and it's not using the nuchal ligament to reach forward to connection to bascule the back, which is what the point of the level 2 through 5 work is biomechanically. And we covered some of that in our wonderful biomechanic, equine biomechanics, the basics, I think. So that's a good thing to review.
And then Ida, I do have a question here before we get too far off about the shoulder in.
Oh, okay.
So question is, if the change is at E, when do you start the bend from the shoulder in to the renver? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, renver.
Renver.
Okay. All right, this is a perfect picture. Is everybody on this one? Can everybody see this picture? So I don't know if you can see, but the ring had been dragged. And so see all of this messy part right here? That's X. Can you see? There's a whole bunch of messy steps right there because that's X in this ring. And so this horse is a step and a half from X. And she's in shoulder in. So she's in jog. And she's a step and a half from X. And right there, 1 step and a half, about a step and a half, that was 1 second before I began to push the shoulders to the left. And how do you get out of shoulder in? You have to keep these hind legs steady. So that's your hind legs in your seat. and you are turning the core, you're turning the core of the saddle, and you're turning those shoulders wider. You've got to keep control of these. They can't fall out. They have to stay on this line. And you put her wider here, and that's going to take a step. By the time I got her wide, was about a step and a half, I was right here, which is where the dirty part of the ring is, where X is. And at that moment, now I'm turning the key on my right hand, and I'm trying to get this. And the amazing thing over here on this picture is that right at her tail is where X is now. So that was probably 3 trot steps. And okay, in her defense, this is a level 5 horse, but it takes 3 or 4 steps to really develop the renvers. And so a step and a half before X, push the shoulders out. Then start with the pull, work and elasticize the outside rein. You're gonna have to give it like crazy, because now look at the bend on the outside of her neck. Like that rein keeps her low and deep, but it has to get long, because, and see, my inside rein is towards her midline, and I'm turning the key to get the pull. So your inside rein, and see here, when she was in shoulder in, this was my outside rein, and my rein was direct because I was on the outside rein and I had a direct connection to this horse's rein, which the right rein is the outside rein. So when you get around the renvers, your right rein has moved towards the center of the horse. It's asking for lateral pull flexion. It's turning over wrist-wise to ask for that. And I turned the core of, I don't know if you can see it, it's very small, but I turned my core some more as hard as I could. I tried to get my left shoulder ahead because I'm turning my knees. I now need to turn her shoulders to the right. And by the time you're a step and a half past, hopefully you're in renvers. If you're not, you have to keep turning the key, the inside rein. It's the wrist action to get the pull around. That's always tough for people if they haven't worked it enough with horses and they're not fast at it. But to get from shoulder into renvers, hold the hind legs. The first thing is step the shoulders wide and then start at the front. You need to get the pull, the neck bend, and turn the twist of the saddle to the right to get this horse to come around the inside leg. Meanwhile, you have to keep these on the line. And it isn't easy. It is not easy. Renvers, I can't tell you how many trainers are like, I don't bother with renvers. I don't do this. They took a poll recently for the dressage trainers and judges, and I answered the poll, and they said that 65% of the trainers for USDF told them that they did not do shoulder into renvers. They didn't like it, they didn't use it, and they mostly skipped that test. Do I think it's important? I do. I think it's really hard for level 2, because I think this is a skill that's really hard to keep those hind legs in line. But that's where it's always been in dressage. It's been in level 2, but it is a really tricky movement. And 90% of it depends on the rider trainer really having skill, understanding mechanically how to get a horse this part of the horse bent, this part of the horse bent, this part of the horse bent, and to have your aids systematically in order while you're able to keep yourself centered, because your centering was what keeps the hind legs in line. It's not easy, but it's a great exercise, and I do it and I do use it. But if you ask us, do we do it a lot? I actually like it after my students are really good with half pass. Then I think it's a really good exercise. Then I use it a lot after they have half pass. Okay, back to side pass. I think we covered that one. Thank you for the question. Side pass requires that you have just full flexion. That's it. That the horse is parallel and straight and square, and that its pole is flexed only in the direction that it's going. The hind legs and front legs will cross in front of the respective pairs, and it will maintain forward intent. This is a gaited horse, is Tamra from Georgia. And her horse, you can see the best part is that he is on the bit, he's pole high. She's doing a really good job looking in the direction she's going. She's even in the saddle. And this is the first part of the sequence. I love this sequencing of stepping, but this is what it looks like. A horse crosses this set of legs, and then behind this set of legs is crossing while this one is getting ready to cross again. They don't all cross together, which people don't always know. He did stay parallel, and here he was very pole high. Right here for a moment, she got distracted, and you can see that this arm lowered and she closed her elbow just a little. And that caused this very, very marginal drop of the pole. But horses are supposed to stay pole high, and they do stay on the bit while they do these movements, and we don't want them to duck behind the contact. So we have to keep them on the bit, but we have to be very careful not to retract on them to allow them to stay pole high. She did a good job with this horse, so he has a real talent for balance and for crossing his legs, and she does a good job staying absolutely straight in the saddle. So these are good examples for us. Here is the half pass, and the half pass is a variation of the haunches in on a diagonal line. It requires more bend than the shoulder in. The bend, of course, is in the direction the horse is moving, and the horse's body, while exhibiting bend, is nearly parallel to the long side. If they ask us for increasing steepness in the diagonal line, the bend will increase. And while remaining on the bit, the horse remains engaged and uphill. And this is the same thing. You can have horses come in and you can get them into a half pass when they're on the forehand, pole below withers, shoulders down, in working gaits, in any gait. You can get a horse to do a half pass or a shoulder in. But just because they're doing a shoulder in or a half pass, that doesn't mean that they're uphill engaged with impulsion. It just means that you were able to manipulate them into the position where they're moving forward and sideways, and they're on the correct line for the movement. So these two horses, front and back, were a cool thing to look at, but obviously pole high and round to the bridles, they're definitely on the bit. This one, you're looking at it from the front, so you can see that the hind legs are clearly crossing. This is a very narrow horse, and so there's a narrow crossing. This is a wider horse, and when he crosses his legs, wow, he has crossing like, whoa. And most of us know more, but when he crosses his legs, his barrel is very strong and very wide. Horses that have wider barrels have more crossing, and this is to be expected. It has to do with how they're built conformationally. People do ask me, well, you know, my horse can't cross. And it's like, no, I'm pretty sure if you get down and you know, push it in the cross ties with your thumb, you know, if a horse can't cross its legs without weight on it, it's you know, it's something's wrong with it, get the vet. Like, some horses do cross more than others, and it has to do with the width of the sternum and their barrel. But all horses are capable of crossing unless there's something wrong with the tack, with the rider, or that mostly unsoundness is what affects horses' ability to cross. So we have really good lateral pole flexion. The horse is on the bit. It is around the inside leg, doing a great job taking weight. And the same thing here, that it's around the the rider's inside leg with bend, has some neck bend, lateral pole flexion, and progressing. And that's what we're hoping for. Saddle gait. People ask me constantly, like, what's your expectation Our expectation of our gaited horses is the same. And these pictures are here so that you can clearly see that here is a gaited horse in the saddle gate that is uphill on the bit and super active. With the same rider, which I thought was great, but a different horse. This is the intro horse, and he's in a long frame, kind of strung out. I don't know if my people are in your way, but I'll move them around a little bit just in case they are. But now here's a baby horse in a long frame, but still what I like is his pole's the highest point. He's active, mouths are closed, everybody's happy, things are good. What we're trying to learn here is that gaited horses are expected to show energy, cover ground, swing through the back, be on the bit, and do all of the movements. And this is a level 3 horse looking really good here. The interesting thing that I thought about these two horses was Tennessee walkers have a tendency to really have a lot of separation of the hind legs as they're walking and when they're in their saddle gait, which is awesome. But these two horses show something that's fascinating. This horse truly is engaged. Look at the tremendous amount of bend on this leg and how much propulsion there is. And although this horse has a lot of separation of the hind leg, you do not see this kind of compression with the SI lowering. And look at that on all of those joints. This horse is moving along, swinging his leg from the hip, which is fine. That's an intro horse. He was being shown an intro and he was active, but he's not taking weight behind, i.e. engaging. The interesting thing is here too is look at the lift and the reach of the forearm on a horse in just working saddle gait and baby working saddle gait because it's intro. But then look at this, and then this leg is going to end up here, the lift and the height of the leg because he's lifting the thoracic. So we begin to perceive that the horse is taking the weight behind, showing energy, and staying round is where we're able to harness the energy that they're producing, and that is collection. Here's pictures of the flying change. Thank you to Joanne Williams for capturing them because it's hard to capture flying changes. And amazing how when horses actually cover ground and are in lively uphill lope, that the changes, these kind of changes that are way off the ground and the horse is on the bit and relative, straight, like she's really straight there, 8. The horses can do flying changes that are very close to the ground. They're very straight and can be very low. And those are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. Excuse me. We give them a decent score. But if a horse exhibits a lot of reach through the change and is more uphill, we know that there was more compression of the hind leg. There was more engagement in the canter before it sprung forward into the change. And we call that ground cover, meaning that it has height and length, and those are rewarded. Oops, sorry. The reinback, or back as we call it, is 2 beat. It's diagonal steps, no dragging of the feet. It must not be ground bound. It should be straight. The pole is the highest point. It maintains acceptance of the connection, or i.e. once again, it stays on the bit. So from the front, we gave this rider a couple of red marks for the diagonals, left front, right hind, right front. And this horse was in the moment of backing and is just beginning to pick up this pair and step back. It's pretty straight. The horse is on the bit and pull high, so that's good. If you look at a horse from the front and you can see the saddle horn, you can see its withers, its neck and pull are low. This is not okay. There will be no ducking. There's no low neck. We do not want the necks below the saddles in the reinback. So this is the frame that we're looking for in level 2 through 5 or rounder and higher. This is acceptable. The horse is on the bit. The pole is above the withers. We can see the diagonal pairs is right hind left 4 and right hind left 4, definitely working in diagonals. And a moment later, when the horse is completing a little bit more of a phase, you can even see more of the diagonal stepping back. So once again, they must not be ground bound, no dragging. They must be, the tough part about the diagonal is that it should look like a diagonal, but when we actually slow it down in slow motion, or somebody, a motion specialist like Hillary Clayton, looks at it, she does tell us that it steps down, the diagonal step down just a little tiny bit off. It looks to our eye like they step back in diagonals, and they should, but one leg will step down just a second before the other. We may be able to see it here because this one looks like it's still up a little bit and this one's already down, but it's definitely working in diagonals, and that is required. We're looking for that. So once again, thank you for people who are willing to allow me to look at things. This is a beautiful horse. I like this horse. It's gorgeous. The owner was kind enough to tell me that at the moment that she pressed this horse forward in the lengthening lope, that it got away from her. And when she started the lengthening lope a minute or two before, it was more on the bit, which we were thinking about. And she began to press this horse, and it went above the bit. And we have to keep schooling ourselves that in level 2 through 5, that if what happens is you're compressing energy back here, you're riding it up to here, and for moments you spread it out and you bring it back, and this is just a moment in time, so no fair. But she did admit to me that she lost the horse's compression, it got off the bit, and it was difficult to get back. It was at the end of the diagonal where she could get it half halted back up and compressed back up to be back on the bit again. But what happens is, as she began to push this horse forward, instead of in the lengthening it being a little more uphill, it lost its balance, went off the bit, and it's going just a little bit downhill here when it should have been moving a little more uphill. This happens to all of us. Why am I talking about it though? We have to learn when horses are not in connection, because we're writing this and we're receiving it on the test. We get them back. Or even, what if it says strung out? That might be a comment that would be for this moment. At this moment, the horse got a little off the bit and the judge says strung out, reins got a little long in the transition, lost engagement. That's exactly what happened to this rider, and she was kind enough to send this picture and let me talk about it, because this gives us an opportunity to become educated. Here we have a horse that is clearly still round, very balanced on the hind legs, and the rider is just about to push, and this is the moment before the push where the horse is still compressed and beginning to think, I'm gonna go. And this horse looked like that a minute before. But at any moment, this rider could lose this one and it gets strung out. This is how they get off the bit. In the walk, one of the things we have to keep talking about is, here's the walk. And this is a horse in the walk in level 4, and its pole has to be above the withers. Unless you're in free walk or they're asking you for stretch jog or free jog, the poles have to be above the withers always. But what we're getting at is horses are round to the bridle. And here's a gaited horse in a very good walk, and it's on the bit. No difference from a walk, jog, lope horse, gaited horse. On the bit, round to the bridles, and this is what it looks like. The travers, or the haunches in, heading along the rail needs to show bend, be wide, be active, and be engaged. Now I took a red pen and I outlined this horse's head and poll so that you could see it. And if you think about it, if you really think about it, you go, wow, it looks a lot like, the renvers, except we're looking at it from the back. Yes, because haunches in and renvers are both 4 tracks on the bit with a lot of bend. And the minimum amount of bend for haunches in, minimum 35 degrees. That's the minimum. And if you can get more, you do get more. And this horse is about up to 40. And this is a level 5 horse. And that gets a good score if you can keep it up. Granted, has to be steady, mouth closed, on the bit, keep the same trot, be active, not muscles tight. You can clearly see the 4 tracks. There's a lot of bend. And she's bent around the inside leg. So the bend and the angle is clearly greater than shoulder in. And these are the requirements. I went right to the rule book and I'm quoting from the rule book so that if you're looking at this again by yourselves, you're going, okay, this came right from the rule book. Like a lot of this information is right there telling you, yes, it needs to be wider than the shoulder in. Low pirouettes. A lot of us don't talk about this too much. If we have high level dressage experience, we've worked on it, but some of us some people that come in from the other divisions have been doing rollbacks and they've been doing some other things and not the low pirouette. So it's a new thing to some of us in Western dressage. The dressage people, if they've gotten to that level, are more familiar with it and are a little more comfortable with it. It is one of our most complicated movements. It is a movement that we're very careful with because it does put a lot of strain on the horse's SI and hocks, and you want to be careful while you're schooling it. Overschooling can be difficult. Make sure the horse is fit to do this. Remaining lightly on the bit and engaged, the horse's haunch lowers and it maintains a good lope sequence or rhythm. The horse is slightly bent in the direction it's going, and i.e. that is primarily lateral pole flexion. There isn't neck bend in canter pirouettes, or if there is, it's almost, you cannot see it. Lateral pole flexion is absolutely necessary in the direction you're going. The horse executes a half circle or a circle on 2 tracks with the forehand moving around the haunches. The quality of the pirouette is demonstrated by the relatively small size of the turn, by maintaining confidence, forward intent, suppleness, balance, and quality of the lope. Horses take weight behind. We're looking for them to sit down. And this is one to the left. Here is one to the right. The sequencing of this one's about a half a step ahead going to the right. But you can see that this horse is sitting. She's definitely flexing the SI, taking weight on the hind legs, and the forehand is just about to come up. The pole is the highest point. She's just barely in front of the vertical, which is okay, either on the vertical or just marginally in front of the vertical is acceptable for soft connection. Mouth is closed, eye looks soft, and ears look interesting. In this direction, she's just a little bit further along, turning right, and look at the height of the foreleg, because look at the height of the sitting. What does have to happen is the horses must not hop together like a bird behind. And some horses get to hopping, they look like a crow because they lose the sequence behind of the footfall, which we refer to as losing separation of the hind legs, and they begin to hop rather than to keep a clear 3-beat lope. It can happen. A lot of times it has to do with the horse learning its balance, or the rider is trying so hard to keep the horse on a spot that they're preventing the horse from maintaining the sequence of the footfall. And remember, that's the first spoke of the training wheel. So keeping the correct rhythm of any gait is primary. And if you need to make the pirouette larger, or you ditch the pirouette, get out of it while you're practicing, you have to keep the rhythm of the canter correct. The lope has to be 3 beat and balanced. So this is what lope looks like, at least in pictures. And here's the requirements, i.e. that the horse will be lightly on the bit, will be engaged, and the hind legs will keep active and lower. Once again, talking about the frame, that the horses are required in level 2 to be continuously round to the bridle. For horses that don't stay continuously round, we get the comments on the test that say unsteady to the connection, lost the balance above the bit, mouth open, tight in the neck. These are some of the comments that occur when things go wrong. What is really significant, though, may be this, that the horse must show a notable change in impulsion, balance, and engagement from working gaits. Now, are judges a little forgiving about that? Well, I'll give you my opinion, and then Sue, are you still there, Sue Morrissey? In level 2, which is the first time that we're moving from working gaits to collected gaits, if I see a horse that has a lot of impulsion and the rider can keep up the impulsion and get the job done, and I have the feeling that it's not compressing a lot, but, or maybe the compression is coming and going. In level 2, the horse is learning this and developing it, and it is slow to get. And based on the rider's effectiveness with their half halts and their own balance, and then the difficulties of all these complicated exercise aids, that can be a little variable. It's sort of like a green driver going out on the turnpike or on Route 95, or the highway for the first time. And, they're doing all they can do to get it up to 65 and pay attention with all the traffic and everything. And then the next thing they know, they're at 60, and then they're at 65, and then they're at 70, and then they're at 60, because they're having all they can do to focus on all this stuff. And they can't maintain the same speed while they do all these other things and deal with heavy traffic. It's sort of like that in second level for a lot of people. And for me, if the horse has a ton of impulsion, I will forgive that, because I feel like they're going in the right direction and they will develop those skills. What is tricky is when a horse comes in truly not the right balance, not anywhere enough power, and is then trying to do it. That's more of a problem. Sue, are you there? What do you think? Sue Morrissey, you out there?
Yeah, Sue is here. You also have Joanne Williams, and Joanne Coy is on too, Ida.
Oh, Joanne Coy. Hi, Joanne Coy. I didn't know you were out there. Jump in, Joanne.
Well, I was just listening. I'm enjoying the presentation. I was driving too, so I couldn't talk.
Sorry about that. Okay,
That's all right.
Turn you off? Or you're a little more forgiving maybe in level 2 than as they progress up. You feel like the collection and balance, we're expecting it to become more consistent, and that's in the purpose of the test.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, the connection is paramount. I mean, it's something we look for throughout all the levels, really.
Yes, and it's very important that we begin to understand the look and the energy that is required. That collection is not slow, and it isn't unfortunately the misnomer from some of the other Western divisions of collecting, meaning that they're setting their horse's head, but they're not producing the power and engagement that we're talking about when we discuss collection in Western dressage. And this is our educational opportunity here to keep reiterating. That's all. I'm sorry, I'm hammering that home today.
That's all right. Yeah. I can, I've, watch horses that just lift their front end, but there's no activity in the hind legs, and that's not collection either.
Yes. And so they don't have enough power from behind, and that doesn't translate to them reaching to the connection, causing a bascule through the back, which lifts
Right.
the. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so that's something to watch out for too.
it is. And that's a very good point. So these pictures here are for us to enjoy, but also to keep looking at, saying, okay, here's a horse on the bit. Obviously, with a lot of impulsion, he's covering ground. Engagement, wow, the legs are bent. The SI looks lowered. Look at that compression of this hind leg from the SI to the point of the hip, to the stifle. Holy cow. And look at the tracking on this horse. Clearly tracking and probably going to overtrack here. A balanced rider, horse with a soft eye, mouth is closed, ears look level. Nice. Here's a beautiful gaited horse in saddle gait. And you can see from the looks of this horse that he's balanced. He looks super straight. Mouth is closed. Eye is soft. Ears look floppy. Tail is swinging and soft. And here it is progressing. Tremendous engagement behind, because the horse is bending the SI, taking weight through the hock and all the way down through this fetlock. Meanwhile, the forearm is beginning to swing. Looks really good. I didn't know it. This is a horse that I kept thinking this was an advanced horse, and Joanne had sent me this picture quite a long time ago, and I kept talking about it. See how much power it takes, and it's engaged in this and that. And then she told me that, I think she said this horse was in level 1 or something when she took this picture. I don't know, it was low and it shocked me. But here's a horse, it's on the bit. It's pole high. It's taking, look at the weight on this fetlock, on this hock. It's pushing forward. It's uphill. And I was thinking that this was like a level 2 horse. And I think she told me it was, I don't know, basic or first level when they took this picture. Well, if she was winning, she certainly deserved to, because this horse was in a balance which was really ready to do some very nice work. So well balanced. And once again, a nice half pass of this gorgeous horse bent around her inside leg, plenty of engagement and harmonious. And a lengthening jog, which is way off the ground, lots of impulsion, lowering and thrusting with pole high, straight, soft, mouth closed. So questions and the training wheel to finish, but I'm going to leave it on the pretty horses for while we talk or answer questions if we have any more. And I so appreciate the comments and the jumping in, folks. Have we covered most of it? I know that a lot of these are above the levels that some of us are riding or working on, and that's okay. You may not be there yet, but maybe what you learned today was, wow, I don't get to drop the basics as I begin to learn these harder things. That was the point of this. We are unfortunately in a growing spurt. We have a lot of new riders. You all are experienced and you've been here, and we have our affiliate here for education. It's really important that we encourage all of our new people to come in, have a good time, enjoy our horsemanship, enjoy our horses. As we progress together, though, keep educating them about our sport and our expectations, because if they've come from other divisions, they may not have, and we see that they don't have the training wheel, and they don't have the understanding of what our discipline is asking the horses to develop. We are developing them to be happy equine partners, comfortable, sound, active athletes with us, fun riding horses that we feel safe on. They do not have to be Olympic horses, but they have to be sound and they have to be comfortable. And we're looking for them to work with us together in fairly athletic modes. So for people coming in that are maybe by mistake in the pleasure jogs, in the pleasure lopes, we need to keep saying to them, gosh, I know you worked really hard at getting that pleasure jog, but that isn't what they're rewarding here in Western dressage. We don't want to discourage anyone. We want to encourage them. But one of the things that we want to say to them is the energy and impulsion, the balance and the connection that we ask these horses is ergonomically the balance which will encourage them to have a longer life and stay sounder longer. If a horse isn't capable of beginning to move in these ways, they need to explore if the horse is physically comfortable and if it's sound. Because this work, it's not like, oh, this horse's conformation can't do this. Our system of the training wheel and the basis of dressage is for every horse of every temperament, of every conformation. And most horses, if they're comfortable, can progress slowly along and gain strength and be comfortable. If they're not comfortable and they're not progressing, something's wrong, and we need to encourage them to explore that. So that's part of our education process too, is to keep saying to them, keep looking at the gaits. If your horse's gaits are not going well, then either something's wrong with the training, but many, many times the horse is not sound. And they need to work with that and get the horse comfortable, and then begin with their training wheel again and keep addressing all of it and looking through it and going back over it. And they will make progress. And we're here to help them. And we want everyone and every horse to be comfortable here. That's our goal. Well, comments, questions? Thank you all for wonderful pictures. Well, that concludes this series, and I thank you for that. And Mary and Sue are talking to me about a possible series in the fall, maybe late fall and early winter, and going through the winter. And so we'll hopefully be back with you then. And until then, thank you all. I had so much fun doing this with you. Thank you for asking us, and I appreciate all the help that made this possible. Take care.
Thank you, Ida.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much.